Hi guys, welcome back to the Fortune Tech Space. Today, I want us to look at the steps you need to take to become a backend engineer. In the previous videos, I explained what backend engineering is, who a backend engineer is, and today we are just going to look at the steps you need to take to become a backend engineer. So we are going to go straight into the steps you need to take to become a backend engineer. And the first step is to learn the web basic programming language. Yes, I know we are looking at steps to become a backend engineer, and then I'm saying that you should look at the basic web programming language, which is HTML and CSS. For me, I think it makes sense that as a backend engineer, you need to know at least how to modify an HTML and a CSS code, because you, in one way or the other, need that in your backend application. Let me give you an example. Okay, I'm a backend engineer, if you don't know, and every single day I, in one way or the other, look at HTML code. Why do I say that? There are some applications that requires the backend to send out emails. Now, emails are built with HTML and CSS, so therefore a backend engineer needs to know a little bit about HTML and CSS, and I think it's a good skill to have as a backend engineer as well. So, and if you don't know what HTML and CSS is, my very last video explains it into detail with images and all those stuff you need to know. So please, if you haven't looked at it and you need to know what HTML and CSS is, if you're beginner, please look at that video, and you'll get to understand what HTML and CSS is and what they do, these two programming languages do. Once you are done with learning HTML and CSS as a backend engineer, the next step is to pick a backend programming language. Okay, now I have a list of them, which is 5. I have 5 of them in the list, but there are more than that. Okay, but then I picked these 5 based off my 3 factors. Okay, the job market, the popularity of the programming language, and also the support the community that programming language has. Okay, and the reason why, you already know why, like I have job market in there. You can't go and learn something that you won't be able to be employed for, right? So you need to make sure whatever you're learning is inside the job market currently, not previously or would be, but currently, and then hopefully in the future. Then the next factor which I mentioned is the community. The reason why you need to pick a programming language that has a huge community is that we are all humans and we need Google or Stack Overflow in one way or the other to fix our bugs when there's a need to. So you need to learn a language that when you get stuck, someone next to you or on Google search or Stack Overflow, you get helped in fixing your bug in your code, right? That is why you need to pick a programming language that has a bigger community, right? And then the last one is the fact that it's popular. Popularity brings out these other 2 factors. Once it's popular, then it is then needed in the job market, and then it has a bigger community. That being said, let me go straight into my top 5 backend programming language that I think you should learn. Not all of them, you can just pick one and learn them, right? So I'm going to mention the programming language, and then I would also add a framework that you would have to also learn alongside the programming language so that you are able to use them together. As I said in my previous video, the framework helps you build your application faster, right? So it's kind of like a helper to the programming language, right? So I'm going to start with the list, which I have JavaScript as my first programming language that I will recommend to you. JavaScript can be used to build an entire backend system with the help of Node.js, which is a framework to JavaScript. I'll leave a link in my description box to their documentation on Node.js and JavaScript as well. Now, the next programming language on my list, which is my favorite and what I write every single day, which is Python, right? Now, Python is also another famous and popular and whatever name you want to give it. It's also a very good programming language you would want to take and learn. The framework to Python, we have Django and we have Flask. These two frameworks are really popular and does a whole lot of stuff for you out of the box, which you can just add to your Python and build a very secure and scalable application, right? Then the next one I have on my list is PHP. Okay, now PHP is another big guy which you can learn, which has a framework of Laravel. You can look into Laravel framework and see how best it works with PHP for you to build a very secure and scalable application, right? Then I have Golang. Now Golang is also has risen over the years very fast, and they have a bigger community now. I can tell based off but I myself don't do Golang. So yeah, you can also look at Golang as your programming language, backend programming language. The next and last programming language on the list is Ruby. Ruby is also a programming language you can use in building a backend application, building APIs and all those stuff. And Ruby is not as popular as Python, JavaScript, and PHP, and I can even say as in Golang. But then it's also in the industry, and then there's a huge community for Ruby, and there's a framework called Ruby on Rails or Rails, anyhow you want to call it. So yeah, that's a framework you can use on Ruby to build a backend application which would be secured and scalable over time. So these are the list in my top 5. This is my top 5 programming backend languages that I would want you to look at. And you don't need to learn all these programming languages. You just need to pick one. One is enough for you to build a career off on. Okay, one is just enough, and what you need to do is you can as well learn the other ones, but what you need to do is take the one you wish to learn. And how I advise people to pick their programming languages to have like a view on all the programming language. So let's say if it's this 5 programming language you want to pick one programming language from, you would probably watch a YouTube video or look at each of them's documentation. Once you look at it and you find a relationship with the syntax and all those stuff with a particular one, then you settle for that and learn all there is to learn in that programming language. So like learning the data types, understanding what for loop is, and all those stuff, right? Once you understand that concept in that particular programming language you want to do, you can easily transfer, or let me say descend on the other programming languages and just learn the syntax of that new programming language. You don't really need to go over learning how variables or data structure is. It's the same for all programming language, right? The definition for list in Python is the same definition for list in PHP, in Ruby, Golang, Python, right? It's just that the syntax in writing them in these various programming languages are different, and that's the only thing you would have to learn when you move on to another programming language. So it's advisable that you pick one programming language, you master all there is you need to. Then, once you are done and you're comfortable building application with that programming language, and you then wish to move to, or you want to add another programming language to what you already have, it becomes easier for you to do, right? So that is it with the backend programming language. Now, the next thing you need to do after identifying and learning what there is in this programming language, then you need to understand what database is and learn how to use that programming language you chose in the previous step in working or in conjunction with these database you want to choose, right? There are two main database types, which we have the SQL database and then the NoSQL database, right? It has a lot of things. There are so many differences with these types of database, and you just have to figure that out. I'll drop a link in the description box where you can look at these types of database. But then any database you choose still works with any programming language you are learning or you wish to use in your applications. Okay. So once you have done learning your database, then you would want to look into APIs, right? Now, good thing about framework is they have, as I said, frameworks comes with pre-built codes and all those stuff. Now, framework, like, let's take Python for instance. Okay, Python has a framework of Django. Now, Django on its own as a framework has a framework called Django REST framework, which allows you to build API out of the box so easy, right? So you want to learn how to build APIs, and this is where the frameworks comes in to make things easier for you to build APIs. Okay, so you need to learn APIs after picking a programming language. Then you pick a database. There are types of APIs you can look into. There's REST APIs, there's SOAP, and there are other type of APIs you can build as a backend engineer. The most popular one is REST, so I would urge you to look into REST APIs, and then you should be good to go. So once you are done learning the backend programming language, and then you have looked at database and also learned how to build API out of the programming language and the framework and the database stuff you have learned, then you should be able, the next thing you should do is to learn how to write tests, right? You need to be able to write code that tests your code that you've written in your application, right? So let's say you build an application that has an endpoint, right? And this endpoint is to log users in to your application, right? You need to build a test case that actually tests that function or that API that you built, right? So you write this code, and the code goes into the function or the API that you wrote and actually enters some random keys and all those stuff to see if the endpoints or the application actually works as expected. So those are things you need to learn how to do as a backend engineer. It may sound simple or confusing, but then it's something you need to learn how to do. So I'll still drop some links in the description box to guide you on where to do your searches on and what documentation you should be looking at if you want to be able to write test cases. Now, after you have learned how to write test cases, you are pretty much good to go, right? So once you are done learning how to write test cases and all those stuff, then the next thing you should be looking at, don't get me wrong, but then once you're done writing test cases, you are good to build an application, and you know that the application works well because you've tested it, written test case to test the application, right? So once you are done learning how to write test cases for your application, that's writing API tests, functional tests, unit tests, and all those stuff, then you are pretty much good to go. All you need to do is keep building application. Any idea that you comes into your mind, keep building them, and then you get to understand the whole concept much when you. There are other things I can add to this point, like the server, the version control, and all those stuff. But I'm reserving that for my next video, which I'll be talking about DevOps, and that is where I want to talk about the version control and the server stuff, right? Yeah, so that will bring us to the end of this video. If you really like this video and it was really informative, just like the video, and if there's anything that you would have wanted to hear but you didn't, you can put that in the comment section. Whilst probably if it's something I have to do a new video for, I will, or if I just have to put a comment to your comment, I will do just that. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you in my next video.